Namaskara, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen and dignitaries today who are present with us, I welcome you all to 4th edition of India Clean Air Summit. Yes, during COVID, we conducted our India Clean Air Summit on online platforms, and now we are gathered here for celebrating and creating a revolution towards, finding solutions and cleaning our air. So I welcome you all, and I'm really delighted that we have a really great gathering today, right from academicians to citizen groups to think tanks to industry people who have come together to support this cause of air pollution. India Clean Air Summit, the vision is to bring practitioners, academicians, and think tanks together so that we can, discuss and deliberate and find solutions, because just doing research work and publishing reports is not the only agenda that the think tank have, but we would also want to implement the solutions along with the policymakers and create an awareness among the masses so that the implementation gets faster. Uh, I'm sure we all know that WHO has revised the air quality standards. In India, our standards were 60 microgram per meter cube, and we were not able to achieve that. And now WHO has come up with new standards. So how do we achieve those new standards? So that is something that we will all have to discuss and work on, like what could be the best practices that we can learn from the developing nations? What are the best governance structure that we can adopt from other countries so that India can achieve going forward the WHO standards? It's not an easy target, but yes, probably in next 10, 15 years, we will be there. When we talk about air pollution, it's not just one sectoral problem that we talk about. It's an interdisciplinary challenge that we face, right from socio-economic problems, right from governance structure, right from scientific evidence, and also employment. So we will have to look at the air pollution challenges in a holistic manner and come up with solutions. Apart from that, if we just focus on sectoral interventions, it will be difficult for us to achieve the National Clean Air Program targets. With this, I welcome our dignitaries. May I request T. Sumati ma'am, K. Sudhakar sir, Ricky Cage, Gulati sir, Jay Asundi and Sandra to come on stage, please. Great. So, as I've mentioned, this is the 4th edition of India Clean Air Summit, and every year we try to bring in new theme so that we are able to understand what are the coming challenges that we all can work together. And this year theme is air pollution and climate change nexus. How do we solve this problem of air pollution so that it can also help to solve the greater challenge of climate change? And with this, we thought that we will, include greater audience, go beyond the citizen groups, include practitioners also, include the industry people also, because they are the one who are spearheading in terms of identifying the technologies, identifying the efficiencies that can be used to solve the problem of air pollution. And I would now welcome Dr. Jay Asundi, the Executive Director, to talk about C-STEP and make us understand how C-STEP is trying to work on air pollution and climate change together. Jay.
Thank you, Pratima. Once again, a very, very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of C-STEP. Dr. Sudhakar, Sumati Madam, Ricky Cage, Gulati, Mr. Gulati, Sandra, and of course, my colleague Pratima. The Center for Study of Science, Technology, and Policy is a not-for-profit think tank. We work in the areas of science, technology, and policy. And our mission is to enrich policy making with innovative approaches using science and technology for a sustainable, secure, and inclusive society. At the same time, the question we ask is, what is the role of a think tank? You have academic institutions also producing knowledge. The think tank is also an institution that is supposed to produce knowledge, but at the same time is supposed to take on what we call our grand challenges. To that effect, CSTEP has taken up 3 grand challenges in the coming decade that we will talk about. The first one is what we will call the clean energy transition. As all you know, that we have to move to decarbonizing our economy, looking at decarbonizing our systems, our power systems, our industrial systems, our transportation systems. The second one we are looking at as a grand challenge is what we are here to talk about here is about clean air for all. How do we achieve that challenge? There is that famous statement which says that the difficult is easy for us, it's the impossible that only takes some time. And I think that is something that we have to work on here. It is a grand challenge that we have to work on. The third grand challenge CSTEP is working on is what we call our secure, sustainable futures. How do we secure our futures for our children, our grandchildren, and make our environment sustainable and our lifestyle sustainable? With the idea for clean air for all, I think CSTEP has taken on this particular challenge in the last few years. We are relatively a new entrant. But one of the things that we realized when we got into this space was there is a need for dialogue between academicians, policymakers, the general public, and also think tanks like us. To that effect, I say the think tank is just an institution that helps bring these people together and creates a platform for that dialogue. And to that effect, we are hosting the India Clean Air Summit now for the last 4 years. I am very happy to say that we have been able to continue this effort over the last 2 years during the pandemic, had a fairly good amount of interaction between people. But I think the time has come now for us to again meet each other face to face, find new ways to collaborate and develop solutions for a cleaner air and a better future for all. With that, thank you very much, and I hope we have a great number of sessions over the coming 2 days, and we are able to showcase solutions in the coming years and saying that this is what we discussed at ICAS 2022, and this is how the solutions came about. So once again, a warm welcome to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay, for focusing on the 3 main ideas that CSTEP is working on. Presentation. Can I have the presentation? So I'll quickly take you through what Center for Air Pollution Studies at CSTEP is doing. So Jay has already introduced what CSTEP is doing on all the sectors that we are working in, right from renewable to power sector to air pollution. Center for Air Pollution Studies basically focuses on 4 major verticals, right from measurement and monitoring to modeling, policy analysis, and capacity building. So our main focus, as I mentioned, was to provide scientific high-quality policy advice for improving air quality in India and South Asian region. And we aim towards generating a lot of scientific data that is relevant for the policy makers to work on devising new policies. We collaborate with various academic institutions, think tanks, and other industry people as well, so that we can brainstorm and work together with them towards solving the problem of air pollution. These are few of our stakeholders and funders who have supported us through our journey of Center for Air Pollution Studies. I would want to thank our media partner, ASER, for helping us to promote India Clean Air Summit, our event partner and digital partner, iBentos. I just want to highlight that over the years, CSTEP has developed a good reputation with various institutions, and because of that, under the National Clean Air Program, Central Pollution Control Board has identified C-STEP as one of the institute of repute to work with Karnataka State Pollution Control Board and BBMP towards solving the problem of air pollution. We are also member of Air Pollution Measurement Consortium of Technical Air Resource Unit created by DST, Department of Science and Technology. And we are also member of the Air Quality Action Forum initiative of UNEP. Just talking about few of the studies that we have carried out, we started with the state of Bihar, where we developed clean air action plan for the cities of Patna, Gaya and Muzaffarpur. That was one of the first comprehensive clean air action plan that we developed, and which was taken up by various line departments for implementation. We have developed a very high resolution emission inventory for Bangalore, which is at 1 by 1 kilometer grid. And the outputs of emission inventory and the source apportionment study that we carried out has helped to refine the existing clean air action plan that was developed by Karnataka State Pollution Control Board. And BBMP has already initiated to take those action with various line departments towards implementation. We have developed very good capacity in using satellite data for estimating PM 2.5, and recently we published a report where we focused on 4 cities, Kanpur, Delhi, Bangalore, and Indore, where we estimated PM 2.5 using satellite data. We recently carried out a mobile monitoring where we use semi-reference grade instruments. We put it in a car and go around on roads measuring the PM 2.5 and other pollutants as well. This gives us a very good understanding on where the hotspots are in the city, and it helps to create a better understanding on which activities we need to focus for finding solutions. At C-STEP, we have an air laboratory where we have a beta attenuation monitor, which we use to calibrate other instruments and understand what the ambient air quality levels are on day-to-day basis. We have recently published a book on what are the best practices on using low-cost sensor network, and how do we assess the performance of these low-cost sensors. Policy achievements, as I mentioned, that our Bihar study was taken up by the Bihar State Pollution Control Board and the various line departments, and that was like the first study, so we take pride in mentioning this, that was the first policy achievement for C-STEP. As mentioned, the outputs of the EI and SA study are already being used to refine the cleaner action plan and to develop the micro action plan for Bangalore. Way forward, as Jay had mentioned, that India Clean Air Summit is just not a platform to bring various stakeholders together, but we also intend to build an ecosystem of like-minded people who can come together in solving this problem of air pollution. So going forward, we would want to, create such an ecosystem at a national level, bring in all collaborators and people who are willing to work together, and make it an active platform. Also, as we are presently working in India, we would want to expand and reach out to the other nations also and see how they are working, what their best practices are, how we can learn from them, and how we can also help increase in terms of understanding India's way of working. I want to take this moment to announce that we are going to start an executive course on air quality management, which will focus policymakers, management people, students. So I want to take this moment and say that yes, in probably next 1 or 2 months, you will be hearing from us on this course structure. It will focus right from measurement, monitoring, modeling, policy assessment, techno-economic assessment, so that you get a better understanding of what is the dynamic of air pollution and how to solve it. And today, while we are working in generating a lot of scientific evidence, I also want to say that we are starting to work towards creating awareness, because until and unless we create awareness among the masses, our scientific effort will not be that helpful. And in that direction, we have come up with a storybook which features small children, and it is a story of a dog, Milo, who understands air pollution, and we have named the book Milo the Clean Air Marshal. Can I have the books, please? excited and happy that how this book is received by the kids and how they understand air pollution. And we will seek everyone's support in spreading this message. Now, we have uh, Keshav Sudhakar sir, who is an Indian politician serving as the Minister of Medical Education and Health of Karnataka. And he's the youngest cabinet minister in the fourth ministry. That is a great achievement. And we all know about his the work that he put in, all the hard efforts that he put in during the COVID time in taking up the challenge and securing that Bangalore does not, have more cases. And that was really incredible. So I would invite Sir to come and speak about health issues and air pollution.
Good evening to ladies and gentlemen. Guests on the dais, Srimati T. Sumati, Honorable Member of Parliament from Tamil Nadu, Dr. Pratima Singh, my good friend Sri Ricky Cage, who is the Grammy Awards winner, 2 occasions. Dr. Jai Asundi, Director C-STEP, Mr. Sandra Hall, and friends from the media. I've been part of this summit, C-STEP initiation, in the last 4 years, right? Right from being a legislator, I've been a constant participant, regular participant of this summit. So I really acknowledge for the kind of pursuance, the effort of the C-STEP in really understanding the issues related pollution. And you are also trying to give some solutions. So we all, this generation, we are in such a phase that, as Barack Obama, the former US president, once said, we are the first generation to witness the kind of impact of the pollution. And probably we will be the last generation to fix this issue of the pollution. So I think taking a cue from that statement, we should understand, as a responsible citizens, as a responsible government, we all have a part to play. Of course, you were speaking about the rights. Rights always comes along with the responsibilities. Always we speak about rights. It could be human rights, fundamental rights, but seldom we speak about our responsibilities. We shy away from it. So unless we are responsible and we take this seriously, we can't fix the problem. Of course, as an Indian, as a young nation, India has acted really quick. Due respects to the guests on the dais, the nations from the West, they have released as much of carbon dioxide in the name of development, industrialization, at least 50 years ago. And today our nation has just started to develop, industrialize, urbanize, because urbanization is the order of the day worldwide, especially in India. A lot of people are migrating towards cities. And obviously, the air in the cities are much more polluted than in the rural areas. So, speaking from the perspective of being a health minister, we all faced COVID. But what I observed during COVID is I saw many people from urban areas who are developing more of COPD after the infection of COVID than the rural areas. So that means to say the risk of infection of lung is much higher in urban area. So we need to fix it. We know what is happening in Delhi. Everybody must be having a smartphones, and we all get the updates every day. What is the air index? What is the air purity in Delhi? So the number of cases of COPD across the nation is increasing. Medically speaking, there is a silent deaths because of air pollution. So strokes are increasing, coronary vessels issues are increasing, and similarly, there are a lot of health hazards because of pollution. So pollution, to fix the issue, it is a multi-dimensional issue, multi-segmental and multi-sectorial. So every sector has a role to play. Just government cannot order something and we can come out with some order and tomorrow it cannot be fixed. For example, Bangalore, when it was initially conceptualized by Kempegowda, Nadaprabhu Kempegowda, he wanted to build this Bangalore as a nice town, not exceeding 2 million, with beautiful parks. If you see the Kaban Park today, Lal Bagh, it was all conceptualized and it was built then, about 530 years ago. The lakes that he built in Bangalore was then. There were more than 300 lakes, large lakes. Today I can only count in Bangalore, because even on lake fronts, people have acquired, legally or illegally, I can't say, but they have entered even the lake bodies, the water bodies. So these are the challenges that we are facing. Secondly, the population from 2 million, we have rose to today is 1.3 crore people we have. That is 13 million people in Bangalore. And every day, I was told by Transport Commissioner recently, every day there is an additional introduction of 5,000 vehicles every day in Bangalore registering, new vehicles. And he was also saying that there were more vehicles than the people living in Bangalore. We all talk about traffic congestions. We all talk about traffic jams. Once I want the citizens to understand or place themselves in the shoes of the government and see the problems from their perspective. If I as a citizen can't understand, if I have a family members of 4 or 5 in the family, if I need 4 or 5 vehicles to travel around, and we are not taking any public transport system. So there are so many means and ways where citizen can really contribute and really make a change. Our state is committed for this. That is why Karnataka, we are developing more of a non-conventional, that is renewable energy. Our renewable energy, to give you statistics, I think we generate 40% of the total national's renewable energy that is generated. That is Karnataka. And we have the largest solar park in entire Southeast Asia. These are just examples of good governance or good thinking of the government towards that side. In fact, our Honorable Prime Minister in the UN summit, as he has announced that we will be generating close to 500 gigahertz of megawatts in renewable energy by 2030. This is what he said. And by 2070, he has assured the world that India would be carbon neutral. So this is the target that we have. We must have the short term, medium term, and the long term targets, and that is how we can, at the end of the day, achieve our goals. Even today, the most advanced nations can't say that they are carbon neutral. They are still emitting a lot of carbon. And I can think of Burma next to us, Bhutan, which is not carbon neutral, I think they are plus carbon negative. That is the only nation sandwiched between India and China, the two largest carbon emitting nations in the world. So this is the paradox we are living in. Unfortunately, humans have only one place, that is Earth. We have to save it. And we have a responsibility, since we have inherited such beautiful nature, pristine nature, we have the responsibility to give it back the same or better kind of atmosphere, the earth, to our future generation, our children, our grandchildren, our future generations to come. Otherwise, the future will curse us. So, friends, I think today it's a great occasion where a lot of stakeholders from different spectrums you have come here to discuss and to especially the research and development in this area is very important, and our Indian Institute of Science in Bangalore is continuously striving to give us a lot of solutions. We are working very closely with Indian Institute of Science and Indian Institute of Technology, since we have state-of-the-art higher education centers in Bangalore. Nevertheless, our government will do all its best to protect our earth, especially Bangalore, because Bangalore is rapidly growing. It is it is the second fastest growing city in the world today. So it is that pace in which Bangalore is growing. So we have to be mindful as a government on that account, and we should always engage our people. We should engage our children. We should engage our students continuously have a dialogue with them and make them partners in achieving these targets. So that is how, with a cohesive approach, with a partnership approach, I'm sure that we can really do wonders in this state and in this nation, because this is the nation which has shown the world, when united, we have taken 100% of both the doses of vaccination. Countries like US, still they haven't even touched 50%. So this shows there is a strength in our unity. We may be diverse in our religions, caste, language, states, everything. But with united approach, definitely we can achieve this. I wish C-STEP and all other channel partners for this summit a grand success. I think this will be a three-day summit. So I would like more and more people who are really associated with the organizations, government sector, and even NGOs. A lot of NGOs should participate. The students should participate. And thank you, thank you very much for this Melo. This looks very attractive. Thank you for the opportunity again to interact with you, to save this planet and to minimize the pollution, to make our air clean in the atmosphere. Thank you.
Thank you for raising some important issues, sir. And it was really interesting to know that COPD in rural areas is more. We have a dedicated session on health, where we are getting a lot of doctors. So we'll definitely take up this issue and discuss in detail. And yes, there are some pressing issues that we will be talking about, like the transportation sector and all. But one important thing that you mentioned, that we need to make our stakeholders our partners. And I think that is a very strong message that we need to understand and take it forward. And with this, I thank you very much for coming and showing your support towards solving air pollution. And as you mentioned, that we will strive to make Bangalore a better city. May I request Jay to present a small token of appreciation that we have. Okay, so sir has to leave in hurry, and I would request Jay to welcome our dignitaries here. have T. Sumathi ma'am among us, who is an MP Lok Sabha from Tamil Nadu. I was going through some videos a couple of days ago, and I saw that she's not one person, she's like a combination of so many people, right from a poet, a writer, an educationist. She loves gardening. She has decorated her house like anything with a lot of artifacts and crafts, and that shows what a versatile person she is. And what interested me the most is when she raised in the Lok Sabha about National Clean Air Program, why Chennai was not included in the list of non-attainment cities. And time and again, she has raised her voice about climate change and air pollution. And that is when we wanted that she should be the one who should come here and talk about the cause. Because today we are not talking about technical aspects of air pollution, but we want to reach out to the greater masses and talk about the subject in a simpler and plain language so that the message gets, gets reached to more people. So today I invite ma'am to come and please share her thoughts.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much, Pratima, for a wonderful introduction, and dignitaries on the stage who have come here and proven that this is a very serious issue to be addressed at the grassroots level. Good evening to all of you, and my heartfelt thanks to the Honorable Minister for Family and Health Welfare, State of Karnataka, for having attended this and delivered a sort of keynote address for this conference. Well, before coming here, I was just sitting down and then pondering over what to talk and how to begin and where to take my threads from. I was just going through all the quotes, and you must be familiar with this quote: we have not inherited this earth from our ancestors, but we have borrowed it from our children. So I thought probably I can begin to share my thoughts on it. But more than that, a very disturbing news in the newspapers today just picked up my attention. Leaving on a jet plane, why Steven Spielberg is facing flak over private aircraft. This was the most disturbing news for me today. It had hit all the headlines because nobody is going to bother about had anybody would have done it. Since he was an ardent advocate for climate change and a person who had talked about it and a celebrity of whom the generation look upon. So the news says that Hollywood director Steven Spielberg, who has regularly sounded the alarm over climate change, took 16 trips spanning 27,000 kilometers since 23rd June in his Gulfstream G650. His plane burned more than rupees 92 lakh of fuel in just 2 months. So what triggered my thought was the whole issue of climate change as well as the threat to air pollution, everything, whatever we are talking at the grassroots level as well as on the policy making, it needs to begin from the individual. Even it is just a small step, one day at a time, it has to be the main point of focus to be we should begin, or we should be the central focal point of what we advocate. As Pratima has introduced me, the other side of is I come from an agricultural family. Both my parents were staunch agriculturists. My mother, who retired as a teacher, was an agriculturist. even, like even a month before she met her death, she was regularly going to her field. And she was adopting throughout her span of being an agriculturist all those indigenous methods of planting a seed, using the husk itself as a manure, leaving the field certain times of the season, not cultivating so that it can recycle on its own, getting ready for the next cultivation. What I inferred from her is the value of no greed in getting a lot of produce. So that is the lesson I learned from my parents. And from that, I just got the seed to take care of not only the environment, but also, like to think about where were we just even 30 years ago, adopting all these indigenous wonderful methods, wherein we were so eco-friendly, environmental conscious, and now where have we actually come at the crossroads of discussing so much about the Paris Treaty, but not yet concretely taken any fruitful steps towards it. And where am I as an individual, as well as also a legislative member of the parliament? As it was pointed out here, whenever I get a chance, like I never fail to raise this issue in the parliament, and we do have a like-minded parliamentarians who have formed up a group working constantly on this, and recently even we have had intense working very seriously. Whoever the parliamentarians interested in this issue, we were given a separate intense who would do research in our constituencies regarding particularly the AQ issues. And that way, I'm really happy as well as worried. Happy in the sense that I am conscious and I'm taking responsible steps working towards it. But I'm worried because Chennai, even now I had a discussion with some of my colleagues. Chennai, they say it is in NCAP, but I checked it up, it has a star before it. That means it is still in that cap of non-attainable city. That is what is worrying me much. So Chennai, I'm a member of parliament, Chennai South constituency. Velachery in my constituency is the worst affected area, and I have North Madras also. Though I'm not a member of parliament from that constituency, I do have to talk about it because North Chennai is the industrial hub. So a lot of issues had to be addressed on that particular point of view. But my worry is Chennaites are not that much, like worried about the air quality, and apart from main places like the metros or in hospitals, you can't see AQ sensors or indicators in regular basis in the common public places, be it in the park or in the school or in the roads. It's not yet that much familiar, so that people are also a little laid back. We talk about lung spaces, especially during the pandemic period, we realized how important a city to have had lung spaces. And though we've been talking and much crux had been put on that area of it, still even in those areas, parks also, there's no AQ indicators in Chennai. So what I just took as a parliamentarian is just trying to figure out wherein I can create an awareness amidst the public, and as well as also put up the indicators wherein people, the common public, think about it, talk about it. Actually, the air pollution, they say it's not just an environmental issue. It is a health issue. You must be familiar with when, I think many years ago, the London mayor called the city to be shut down because of the air pollution. She called it as a serious health issue, and we have this taboo here in India, even talking more about it as an environmental issue rather than a health issue. So that's why I'm happy when Minister for Health and Family Welfare came here to inaugurate this summit, because it needs to be addressed in that particular point. And post-COVID, even during COVID also, I think most of you will be familiar with this term, shadow pandemic. The whole world talked about the shadow pandemic. Even it has the code word, like particularly concerned with women who were locked inside the doors when they were not able to talk about the abuse inside the houses. They were asked to use the code word, 19. COVID-19. If a woman sends that code word to a medical practitioner or a pharmaceutical shop, then that means she is facing domestic violence or abuse. So the whole scenario, we call it as a shadow pandemic. And I don't know how many of you are aware of this code word or the shadow pandemic. During that time, when we were behind the closed doors, when we had a lot of time to talk, as a member of parliament, counseling or talking to women, who were facing all these abuses, when I was just picking up conversations with these women, that one issue that they faced is they were subjected to this danger of being passive smokers inside the houses. Be it from their family members itself. See, when your husband is a continuous chain smoker, you could have walked out had it not been a pandemic period. See, these were, from the outside, it may sound like unimportant issues, but when I spoke to few women who sent such code words, when I was addressing this particular shadow pandemic things, I think 3 or 4 women had complained about this. Now, how do I handle this? It is a very sensitive thing because he himself, a husband or a brother or a father, does it every day in the everyday basis, and I can't just come out of it. This is all the more, disturbing than the domestic abuse, and I would also term it as a domestic abuse because it directly affects the mental as well as the physical health of your partner or your sister or your mother. So from then onwards, I took it up as a serious issue, and I had a few discussions with post-COVID with the women groups, self-help groups, and from the urban city women, I just moved on to the village women, from the rural women. I come from a village down south, Virudhunagar district. There, they were not even aware of it. They were not even aware that, most of them, that they were subjected to this passive smoking. Because somehow, there were loopholes for them to come out, or they were able to breathe fresh air. There were loopholes those days, even during the pandemic days. They were not even aware of that. So that was one challenge I faced. I took up a research on this, and I'm just trying to, put out actually a study module with the help of the researchers or the interns and help those women to how to address this issue, especially to sensitize men on this matter. So what I like to drive home is the point that all these things, be it AQ or the climate change, everything, it's interconnected with your individual life. And there's nothing apolitical. When it comes to women particularly, personal is political, I would say. So from this problem onwards, then I went to my home, my birthplace that is nearer to Virudhunagar. We have this pocket of cracker manufacturers, Sivahasi, which is a manufacturing hub of the crackers. So that has been a very continuous problem. Even the member of the parliament being a different person, from a different party, but still he's also concerned about the pollution it creates. Now my challenge that both of us we face is, what is the alternative solution for the livelihood of those manufacturers? We can't just put a blanket ban on it. We do give them the green crackers, the alternative of it, but still, is it actually feasible, or are they practically using it? And what are the alternative suggestions? So that's another challenge. Also, making the rural women aware of it. I come from a South Indian remote village, which is actually developed a lot now, wherein 9 months of a year season is hot, arid soil, it is hot and it is sweaty. we were not at all very much worried about heat or hot sun. We grew up with that. We actually grow crops conducive for that season, all those things. So summer was never a quotient of complaint for us. When I moved to Chennai city as a professor of English, Chennaites would often ask me the question, where would you go for your summer? Because you seem to come quite closer to Kodaikanal and Ooty. That question itself sounded very funny to me because heat or hot climate was never a problem for us. It was a way of life for us because we were planting our crops accordingly, according to the season. We were used to it and we were, very comfortable. But that was not the case 30 years down the lane. That was not the case with my children because of the lots of, like climate changes, all these global warming. The heat now, it's there is unbearable it is. Even now, even those places also, the college-going kids, the teenagers, or the environmentally conscious bodies, they are going to talk about it. Probably, I wouldn't call it as a bickering, but the season has also changed. So when we were having a wonderful life with wisdom-based agriculture, crop growing, without any greed for produce, as well as when we were maintaining the conducive climate, it was sort of a comfortable, peaceful life. But that's not the case here. And as a legislator, as a responsible citizen, I feel that everything should begin from our home, from individuals. Also, the government here, as our health minister has stated about a few steps taken, important steps taken by his government. I would also like to highlight, because I had represented certain issues, and our Tamil Nadu government has also toeing in the line of the activists, taking stock of what has been the situation and brought out certain important solutions to the climate change as well as the air pollution. I would like to, the famous business leader Paul Paloma said about climate change, it is sometimes misunderstood as being about the changes in the weather. However, in reality, it is about the changes in our very own lives. So this is the tagline which I projected whenever I go and speak about this issue in colleges, in, rural areas, because we have this tendency of just taking it as a weather issue, but it is about our lives. So Tamil Nadu government is also carrying out a range of initiatives to lower the level of air pollution. And the main thing is they encourage the purchase of electric vehicles. I think that is the need of the hour. So much has been said about it, and even the union government has taken up policy decisions accordingly. So under the electric vehicle policy 2019 of Tamil Nadu, manufacturers and consumers of electric vehicles can take advantage of a range of tax incentives. It's been given to them. In addition to this, our government's Green Tamil Nadu mission, GTM, unifies all statewide plantation efforts under a single platform in an effort to increase the state's forest cover to 33%. GTM deploys a planned approach to achieve its targets and is primarily a community-based program. The approval of planting estimates and nurseries is done using a scientific technology tailored to agroclimatic zones rather than being done at random. Our government has also set a target of planting 2.5 crores seedlings in the year 22-23, and through this program, it also aims to expand the network of nurseries to increase access to seedlings for everyone. So when coming to my constituency, I would like to share a few points which I had done. The few initiatives I've taken up myself with the collaboration with multiple stakeholders. I'm constantly trying to generate public dialogue by periodically organizing the IEC activities where the involvement of civil society is encouraged. Specifically in this regard, every fortnight, 2 weeks, once 2 weeks, plantation activities of native saplings are being conducted in different parts of my South Chennai constituency. I have this greatest precious marshland in my constituency, Pallikaranai marshland, which is the best of one of its richest marshland with all the flora and fauna. And I have also spoken a lot about this, how to save this, how to make our Chennai, it's very conscious of the worthiness of this marshlands, because whenever Chennai faces rains or floods, there's a tendency, people without the proper knowledge, there's a tendency that why don't we just take all the water from them and then throw to the Pallikarnai marshland. So a lot of sensitizing about this marshland has been done, and that's really important for, I think, to improve the air quality also, because that's supposed to be one of the important lung spaces. And I'm also working with institutes of repute such as IIT Madras concerning the installation of low-cost sensors to help bridge the gap in the availability of local air quality data. I'm also in conversation with the local pollution control board officials, and I was also looking out for CSR in helping out in donating or in supporting installing this AQ monitors. So I am also making use of the Sansad Adarsh Gram Yojana by the Prime Minister. I've adopted a village Sittalapakam, and there also the sensitization program regarding climate change, because when you go to the villages and rural areas, it's very, very difficult. They take things for granted. That's the main thing. It's not that they don't have the inclination to think, sit, and then talk about it. They take things for granted, like burning the garbage or whatever. They don't give it a serious thought. So I'm just involved in bringing out a small community in that village, and then slowly, what is air quality monitor itself is a Greek and Latin word for them. So that's where I'm just making a little bit of difference. And we have a group of parliamentarians, a non-partisan group called Parliamentarians Group for Clean Air, PGCA, and that's how I'm here associated with that. So the main thing is, in order to make a difference in our individual lives, as well as also to make an impact at the India level as well as the global level, we need to act in the spirit of the Sustainable Development Goal. That is, it has to be a sustainable thing. From the practical point of view, you have to look at it. From cow dung, how our grandmothers, they were just using it, and then you can use a renewable energy in that without polluting the atmosphere much. From that onwards, from making our own manure without using any artificial manure, and finding a middle path between the manufacturers as well as the ban for crackers. All these things, we have to have a very holistic approach. And probably some of my poems also, like, it's not a conscious effort to write poems or a story thinking air pollution is a topic or climate change, because you can never produce a creative work with an agenda there. It comes so spontaneously, because I come from a village and I grew up with trees and plantations, flowers, and with the very, very eco-conscious forefathers. So I also translate my Tamil works into English, so that, like the eco, I would say eco ethos, two different words, but still, like, can be understood by different, foreign readers also, to overseas readers also, so that they can understand the indigenous method in which those days agriculture as well as climate were taken as part of their lives. And to end up my little bit of sharing thoughts with you, I would like to quote Samuel Beckett. He said, "We are on this earth and there's no cure for that." Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for all your efforts that you are doing towards. I really want to highlight on the fact when you said that we need to be self-conscious of our activities, and our lifestyle is something that we need to target and change so that we can, solve the greater environmental challenges. It's just not one sector, but entire ecology is connected. There's a nexus. So we have to focus on each and every element rather than just targeting one sector. Apart from that, yes, ma'am actively works with rural women, and she works towards empowering them. And air pollution has impacted women, children, and elderly severely. So we need to target health as a messaging if we want to solve the problem of air pollution. I want to start quoting a tweet. The era of the superstar is gone. It is the era of great content and honesty. Does not matter if it is high or low on production. It is the emotional connect with your audience that matters. This is what Ricky had put on his Twitter. He's a musician, but he's an environmentalist. His music focuses on various elements of environment, and he talks about coexistence. He talks about sustainability. And in his Grammy Award speech also, he talked about Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, where we need to focus on all the elements of nature. And I don't know if everyone knows this or not. He's a dental surgeon. He completed his...
My father forced me to get the degree. But God help you if you come to me and
Right. So, but then his interest to music and that to focusing on environment is his passion. And through his music, he's trying to focus on the challenges of environment. And I think we all need to, be on a platform where we can take music, art, culture to create awareness for such environmental issues. And that is why today, Ricky, I would want to know what made you, consider environment in your music, and what message do you want to put out in terms of creating awareness through your music towards environmental challenges? Over to you.
Yelrigu namaskara. Yelrigu namaskara. Okay, fine. Thank you so much. So it's a huge honor for me to be over here. And all that I can say is that today, unlike most of my concerts and events that I go at, I'm pretty much preaching to the choir. So I'm going to keep that completely in mind. So as I was introduced, I'm Ricky. I'm a musician. I'm an environmentalist, two pillars that have pretty much dictated my whole life and all of my life decisions. And as some of you may know, the only kind of music that I make is about sustainability and the environment and about positive social impact around those areas. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to be very personal in what I'm going to be talking about and in my remarks. So in 2015, I had released an album called Shanti Samsara. The album's name was Shanti Samsara, World Music for Environmental Consciousness. And this particular album had 500 musicians from 40 countries. Basically, anywhere in the world, anywhere I could find a musician who felt as strongly about the environment and about climate change as I did, I just collaborated with them. And then after making this album was launched at the Paris Climate Change Conference, that is the COP21, in 2015 in the end of November, beginning of December. It was launched by our Prime Minister, Narendra Modi ji, and the then French President, François Hollande. So as all of you know, the Paris Climate Change Conference, everybody knows about it, biggest ever conference of parties in the history of our planet, 195 countries coming together, world leaders coming together to figure out how to mitigate the effects of climate change and to make a future that is brighter and better for our future generations. So while I was very intently watching this particular conference, I saw that there was one plenary hall, like how it happens with most of these conferences. There was one plenary hall where all these world leaders would go up on stage and they would give like a 10-minute presentation. And one world leader who absolutely stood out for me was President Anote Tong of the island nation of Kiribati. So President Anote Tong of Kiribati, he goes up on stage. It's a Pacific island nation, as I said, and he gave a presentation which lasted all of 30 seconds. So he just went up on stage and he said that all you countries present over here, please pass a resolution that ensures that my people of Kiribati stay above the water. That's all he said. And he walked off stage. And of course, I was extremely ashamed that I hadn't even heard of this country, let alone her disastrous fate. So then I studied about Kiribati. I started Googling about Kiribati, and I saw that Kiribati is a island nation in the South Pacific, 21 inhabited islands. Used to be 33 islands, now it's 21 islands, inhabited islands, very much in isolation. They are very geographically significant because they are on the international dateline and on the equator. So it's the only nation which has got land in all 4 quadrants of the planet. And they are predicted to be the first country in the world that's going to go completely underwater due to climate change. And as of now, it's said to be irreversible. So then I had to see this for myself. So I actually traveled to Kiribati, and it's really difficult to travel there. You can either go there for 40 minutes or you can go there for a week. That's how it is over there, because it's just one plane that lands there every Monday. So I went there, spent about 3 weeks over there, spent a lot of time with their president, spent a lot of time with their people, fell in love with their culture, fell in love with their traditions. And I realized that this is a country that lives within nature. You know, this is a country that does not take more than they can give back. This is a country that is environmentally conscious. But then if all of our countries, you know, developing nations and developed nations, if all of us could keep our carbon emissions within our own borders, then countries like Kiribati have nothing to worry about. But then the problem is that it's just one atmosphere, and it's a really thin one. And as we all know, we know the drill. Our carbon emissions go spread all over the world. Because of that, there's an unreasonable amount of carbon in the atmosphere. Global temperatures rise, polar ice caps melt, and you know what happens. And then ocean levels rise. And since these are very low-lying atoll islands, they are suffering the consequences of our actions. That's what's effectively happening. So President Anote Tong, he told me 2 very important things. One thing he told me is that, because, the usual question is that what's going to happen to your people? What are you going to do with them? When are they going to leave? And then he told me that most people are not leaving. And I asked him why. And then he said that, like in your countries, when there is a cyclone or a hurricane, the water comes into your homes, and then at some point it recedes, right? But in our case, it does not, he said. In our case, the water just keeps coming in, it just keeps coming in. And then, like sooner or later, people's homes and their ancestral lands becomes part of the ocean bed. And that's the effect of climate change at the end of the day. And then he told me that we as Kiribati are on the front line of climate change because we are low-lying islands. So we are on the front line of climate change, and we are going to fall. And when we fall, those countries and those people who felt that they would never be affected by climate change will be affected because that front line is going to keep receding. And that is the reality of the situation. So it is said that there's not much that can be done about Kiribati, and nobody even talks about countries like Kiribati and Tuvalu and all these Solomon Islands and all these Pacific Island nations simply because, let's put it simply, that nobody cares about them, because they don't have any natural resources, they don't have anything that, that the world actually wants from them. They don't have a thriving tourism industry. So basically, we may or may not be able to do anything about their future, but we can use them as a strong example to showcase that climate change is not some vague phenomenon that may or may not happen in the future, Climate change is absolutely real. It is human-induced. There are current victims of climate change, as I just described, and our actions, sitting down over here, are having disastrous consequences on people on the other side of the world. Now, of course, what do we do about climate change now? What do we do about air pollution? Obviously, there has to be a top-down approach, and there has to be a ground-up approach. Now, in my naivety, I'll tell you my thoughts. Now, in a top-down approach, it's extremely essential because, unfortunately, most industry are not going to regulate themselves simply because it's difficult. Not because they're evil, it's just difficult. Because you have to talk about profit and losses, you have to talk about shareholders. In a capitalistic world, the way the systems are built around us, it's just difficult to regulate yourselves in the way that, the Greta Thunbergs of the world want us to be regulated, So it's just difficult. But then at the same time, again, another example about regulation is basically, I was sitting down at a conference in Geneva, and they were talking about how, there was a study conducted on companies which are in the European Union. So companies which are in the European Union, they do not follow the same regulations that they do when they are in their home countries, when they actually travel to other countries, especially countries in the global south and as they call third world nations. So that itself is a very dangerous phenomenon, that they have different regulations in their home countries, and those same countries flout all these regulations and ethics when they go to other countries. The second thing is that a very close friend of mine, a dear friend of mine, Professor Paul Ekins from the University College of London, he's a dean over there, and also he's the head of the UK Energy Research Center. So the thing about, he conducted a study, and again, I'll put the study in my own understanding because, of course, it's a very complex study and it's way above my head. But what I deduced out of that study is that the entire study was about that what does it cost an individual to put carbon in the atmosphere? Or what does it cost industry to put carbon in the atmosphere? Okay? And the amount, the result came out in the negative, which means that we as individuals are currently, the way the systems are built around us, we are being rewarded for polluting the atmosphere. So that is the way the world works. So you can probably look up this research, Professor Paul Ekins, University College London. So that was quite shocking for me. Of course, like when you think about it, it's obvious, but nevertheless, when you put it into perspective as a study from a university, it's quite shocking. So until that number goes into the positive, there's not much that can be done about climate change, and this is a top-down, this has to be tackled from the top down. Then, of course, from the ground up. Now, with all these problems, they say that we are facing a triple planetary emergency. This is like a dialogue that is said at pretty much every conference, you know, that we are facing a triple planetary emergency. There's climate change, there is air pollution, there's pollution of various kinds, and then there is loss of biodiversity, loss of ecosystems, land degradation. So basically, when we are facing all these problems, and a lot of social problems, as was described by the Honorable Member of Parliament, that when you have all these social problems and you have all these environmental problems, in my opinion, the biggest threat to all of us as a human species is the constant thought that we have that somebody else will make a difference. You know, we're always waiting for governments, for intergovernmental bodies, for corporations, for leaders, for politicians to make a difference, when the truth is that the only way we can bring about meaningful change is if we actually change our own behaviors. Now, everybody talks about changing the world, but people rarely talk about changing themselves. And again, that's not because all of us are evil people, again. It's not at all that. It's just because we have not empowered ourselves to believe that the tiny incremental changes that we make within our own lives can actually matter. Our thought is always that if I stop using single-use plastics, what difference will it make? If I stop using fossil fuel energy, what difference will it make? If I use public transportation or if I buy one less jeans, then what difference will it make, you know? But actually, it'll make a huge difference because we have to understand that these tiny incremental changes within our own lives actually matter in a huge way. So again, how do we bring about these changes? You know, we can showcase a ton of scientific data. We can showcase a whole lot of analytics to people. We can give a whole lot of speeches like what I'm doing right now. But then what is absolutely essential is to take this really valuable scientific data, to take these really valuable speeches and these complex ideas and thoughts, and for artists to communicate these complex thoughts and ideas through the emotional language, and in my case, music, so that we are reaching the hearts and souls of people. And that is what will bring about meaningful change, if you hit people emotionally. So the emotional language of communication becomes extremely important. As the Honorable Member of Parliament said, that if you look at climate change itself as an issue, I remember in 2018, the WHO started this campaign known as the Breathe Life campaign. I'm sure a lot of you may know about this campaign and even may be involved with the Breathe Life campaign. So I had actually launched that campaign in Geneva at the Palais des Nations with a 2-hour concert for all the world leaders. Dr. Tedros, basically, he discussed this with me and he said that, you know, we need to stop calling climate change and air pollution as an environmental problem. We need to start calling it a health problem, because at the end of the day, we as human beings, we will only protect things that we love. That's all. You know, that's in our human nature. We will only protect things that we love. So a narrative of that polar bear may or may not die on the North Pole, you know, nobody gives a damn about that. But what people give a damn about is that my child might get lung cancer. My child might get asthma. My child might get, or a loved one of mine, you know, might get bronchitis or is suffering from bronchitis. This is what people care about. People only care about protecting things that they love and within a small circle which is around them. So that is why communication will play a very important key. So to conclude, I'd like to say that climate change, in my opinion, right now is a communication problem. It is just purely a communication problem. And we need to reach people emotionally, because the question is not about knowledge, because we have enough knowledge. The question is not about solutions, because we have enough solutions. The question is not even about awareness, because everybody is aware that there is something called climate change, maybe not at an analytical level, but everybody is aware. The question is, or rather the golden question is, how do we convert all of this awareness into action? So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Ricky. My takeaway statement would be how to convert awareness to action. And that is what, in our sessions, I'm going to, ask the media people and the people who are working in outreach section, how do we work on that? Awareness to action. Yes, we do have scientific understanding, we do have data, but health is a sector where we are still working. We don't have that much data when it comes to a country like India. And that is where a lot of researchers are working. So probably we will have a better understanding going forward. And thank you for all that motivation and that statement of yours, awareness to action. When we talk about solutions, technology interventions, industry play a major role. Today here with us is Toyota's Senior Vice President and Country Head, Vikram Gulati sir. We know that Toyota has been working actively in manufacturing hybrid and EV vehicles, and they have been coming up with amazing technology that could be the probable solution for future. But what I was interested in that Toyota has set up a technical training institute which elaborates on developing global skills, which focuses on colleges and upcoming institutions. So this is a great example that just being an industry and developing technology is not essential, but taking that understanding, taking that knowledge to the masses and educating the students, the young researchers is very crucial. And today I would want Gulati sir to make us understand, on the part of how the transportation sector can become a low emission sector. How can we develop new technologies that can be efficiently implemented in India, and how the consumers take these new technologies? Over to you, sir.
Honorable Madam Member of Parliament, dignitaries on the dais, friends, a very good evening. And first of all, initially to start off, I have to thank you for having me here. And I've really been moved by the dignitaries who've spoken before me. And I'm tempted to start my little discourse with what Madam has just said, the Honorable Member of Parliament. This is an issue which we all know is before us. It's staring at us. The implications are already visible. So it's no longer a question of whether it's really science or fiction. It is very much a science. It's very much going to be an existential issue for all of us, our generations to come. And what I've taken really away from what she said is and I think what Ricky also alluded to is, it's what we all need to do as individuals and especially as industry. And that too, automotive industry. Because automotive industry has a huge role to play when it comes to mitigating air pollution as well as carbon emission. Simply because it is one key contributor to it. I mean, there is no denying the fact. Now, I was very moved by what you said, Ricky, honestly. And if you look at it, the responsibility on us is not just going to be limited to the tailpipe. Our products that we manufacture, it's not good enough to give products which we can say are zero carbon emission from the tailpipe point of view. We have to address and take ownership on a holistic manner in terms of what is the footprint that we are creating from manufacturing of the products that we make. From the products when they are taken out, that is from cradle to the grave, life cycle impact of what we do. And not only that, we have to be responsible and count our carbon footprints, not from a tailpipe point of view, no, from well-to-wheel point of view, because that's the correct measure of what impact we are having on the globe on this issue. So, first of all, I'd like to place before you a very honest submission that if it comes to abatement, it really has to be looked at holistically. We have to take ownership. not only from the footprints that we're doing from a life cycle perspective, but also from a well-to-wheel perspective. Now, Toyota in 2015 took 6 environment challenges as something that it is committed to do. And 3 of these challenges are around zero carbon emission. And what I was talking about in terms of taking ownership for the holistic impact that we make is embedded in 3 of these 6 environment challenges. These are: try to attain zero carbon emission from the products we make by 2050. Not only that, zero carbon from the manufacturing that we do. And last but not the least, zero carbon from a life cycle perspective. Now, here, I'd like to first talk about the product. There is no single technology which is going to be the ultimate solution for all the countries, for all the consumers, for all that they need to do with the vehicle. That's a fact. There is no one solution right now because of varied reasons. These reasons are around consumer choice, consumer need, the money power that the consumer has, the ecosystem that exists or does not exist, and also the ability for the back end, when I say well-to-wheel, to be converted completely into renewable. Also, there are nations which are well endowed with alternate fuels, which are actually cleaner. This may come as a surprise to most of us, but recently I learned 1 year back in a SIAM convention that the lowest carbon emitting technology today, and even in 2030, for a car on a well-to-wheel basis is a electrified ethanol-driven vehicle. Why? Simply because on the well-to-tank, on the energy generation side, the entire energy is getting generated by absorption of carbon, whether it is food grains or whether it is sugarcane. And then this negative contribution of carbon more than makes up for the positive emissions on the tank to wheel. In fact, I'll quote the numbers. For a strong hybrid flexi fuel vehicle, the carbon emission per kilometer is 27 grams. For the European energy mix, electric mobility, electric vehicle of comparable size will give a carbon emission of something like 70 or 65 thereabouts. And these figures are going to improve for electric mobility, definitely, because as we shift to renewable, on a well-to-wheel, these numbers come down dramatically. The other point that we must note, besides this point that there are many technological solutions that can get you there. There's a full range of electrified vehicles which give you the end result, which is carbon mitigation, air pollution reduction, to varied degrees. It's a family of technologies starting from strong hybrids, which give you probably, as per the study done by the Government of India, lab ICAT, 40% of distance, 60% of the time being run on electric mode with engine shut off. That's, if you can call it roughly, half electric using 1/30th of a battery. Now this becomes critical when you start counting the life cycle impact. And that means using 1/40th or 1/30th of the resource, you've achieved half of the carbon emission savings, which probably BEV could be given. Not to say that BEVs are not required, they definitely are. For example, if we have a zone or area where the predominant generation of electricity happens to be renewable, it makes complete sense. There is no two ways about it. And as Toyota, we are completely technology agnostic. We were the first company to come out with an electric vehicle commercially sold in US in 1996 called the RAV4. Thereafter, because it boomed, it didn't go anywhere, nobody bought it. because at that time there were technological problems, there were the challenges that we face today, but they were much, much more difficult. We then shifted to create what is known as the strong hybrid, which is basically a self-charging electric vehicle, consumes half the fossil fuel that a conventional petrol will do. And today, since then and now, we've sold over 21 million electrified vehicles, primarily strong hybrids, contributing to 160 million tons of carbon abatement. Going forward, now that countries have come up, where renewable energy is the primary source, the technology absorption difficulties have become lesser, consumer adoption is becoming better, infrastructure is coming. We have also now started to come out with the full range of electrified vehicles, which also includes a hydrogen vehicle. In fact, we are testing one in India called the Mirai. It's been on a test in India to see how it behaves. By 2030, 35% of our all vehicles sold, 3.5 million of whatever we sell will be pure electric. 8.5 million will be electrified, meaning 5 million will be either plug-in hybrid or a strong hybrid. And just to give you a sense, right now we sell around 10 million. That's going to be around, practically around 90% of our sales by 2030. 3.5 million battery electric vehicles sold is more than what any company sells in terms of all their technologies. So that's from the product side. So the key takeaway that we've learned is you've got to do two things to make carbon abatement really possible in an impactful manner in the shortest time possible. Sorry, I'm getting passionate. What you've got to do is you've got to make sure that you find a solution, technological solution, that's best suited for a particular country. Now, how do you find that? A solution that is matching the energy mix of a country, that matches the consumer requirements, because consumer, at the end of the day, will determine whether the good vehicle that you're selling, the cleaner vehicle that you're selling, is actually going to be sold or not. So, as far as we are concerned, we sell anything from FFV, flexi-fuel vehicle, ethanol-based vehicle, to strong hybrid vehicles, to electrified flexi-fuel vehicles, to electric, to hydrogen, what have you. So technology, keep in mind, is only an enabler. It is not the end in itself. The end has always got to be carbon abatement and air pollution reduction. That is what we have to keep as a goal, both for companies like ours, as well as for the government when it makes those policies. Now, coming to the second element, manufacturing. And Ricky, I kind of go back to what you were saying. I really agree with you. Companies, MNCs, cannot have two standards outside and, let's say, when they operate in developing countries. And Ricky, here's an example where it's exactly the opposite. Globally, we've taken a commitment of going zero carbon by 2035. And I'm very happy to tell you the first country, first plant in the globe where we will achieve this is most likely going to be in India. Because we have already achieved 100% renewable energy use for our grid electricity requirements. We have 310,000 trees planted in our plant, which makes it a mini forest, and a lot of biodiversity has come back. And this has been done using the Miyawaki plantation methodology. We are very close, but not there yet. But as we move forward, we are committed to bridge that little gap that is remaining, and we want to be the first globally to do this in terms of the Toyota family. And this is something that we are very keen to do. Now, when it comes to the third element, life cycle, the buck doesn't stop at my factory gate. It goes to my suppliers, it goes to my dealers. So whatever we've learned over the last 7, 8 years, we've been really aggressively working on this, we are passing on. We are getting commitments from our suppliers, we're getting commitments from our dealers. We're working with our logistic partners so that our carbon footprint can come down, so that ambitious target of 2050 zero carbon on a life cycle basis is something we can get close to. And mind you, this target was announced by countries last year, and we announced this in 2015. And nothing to brag about, but something to show that we are committed. And we are getting there, and we will get there. And our commitment is not just to our dealers and suppliers. We are open to share whatever we've learned, whatever we've done with industry. We openly share that. We've done a lot of Kaizens, continuous improvement, things that people from the plant shop come and tell us that if you do this, your energy reduction will happen. For example, interestingly, using gravity. Gravity to do your job instead of, let's say, something electrically powered equipment, etc. There's so many Kaizens that have been done which have reduced our energy requirement besides the renewable energy that we're doing. To conclude, I would like to state that, this is something I totally agree each one of us has to do individually. Industry has a big role to play, particularly the industries which are contributing to the problem itself. And government, I must say, is really enabling this shift to happen. And I haven't seen so much support, push, both from policy side and regulatory side, with now the hydrogen mission being in place, with so much support happening to electric mobility, with so much talk about ethanol. There are options available. And only thing I think we need from policymakers to enable this to happen is start focusing on the end goal of carbon. Don't get stuck on the ways of achieving that. And allow the market forces to innovate, to come out with solutions which are locally relevant, which can be adopted by consumers fast, because that's the trick, especially in automotive. Because for every petrol car that is sold today, every diesel car that's sold today, it is going to be on the roads for 15 years. So if we get to 30% EV by 2030, it's no good. The consumption of fossil fuel is actually going to double. Why? Because today, if automotive sector sells 3.5 odd million cars, by 2030, it'll be selling around 8 to 9 million cars. And you can do the math. What is 30% of 9? And what is 70%? 70%, how does it compare with the numbers that we sell today? And keep in mind, whatever's being sold today is going to be on the roads. It's not getting off. So if you do a simple simulation, if we do not act today, and acting today means all the technologies that can help you get carbon mitigation that need to come on the roads today. It's no good talking about one technology going to the end of the game. It's multiple technologies that are needed. And if you don't do it by today, the mix in 2030 is going to be something like 85 to 90% conventional petrol and diesel. I think the goal really is to remove the conventional petrol, diesel. Rather, the goal should be to move away from personal vehicles completely. Go for public transportation. But that is something that the government is doing. Even besides that, even if that is done, the numbers are what they are. Even with so much effort in terms of public transportation infrastructure, because that's how we are. We are a growing economy, an aspirational economy. The penetration of cars and scooters in the country is so low. With growth of economy, you can't tell anybody, please don't buy a car. Tomorrow, there's going to be climate catastrophe. He's going to turn back to you and say, have you given up your car? You can't do that. It's not practicable. It's an issue of political economy. So if this is how we are headed, I think what needs to be done is today, and what needs to be done is holistic. And with that, I'd like to thank you for the patient hearing, and thanks a lot.
I am sure everyone would be, patiently listening to your passionate speech. But then, yes, you're rightly saying that we need to move towards public transportation. But there are a couple of challenges, I think, that we all can relate to, like end-to-end connectivity, road infrastructure, safety measures. So until and unless we focus on that also, public transportation is going to be difficult. But then, yes, the governments, the departments are focusing on that. But what I understood from, yes, there were a lot of numbers and I could hardly remember any. I would need to sit with you separately to understand what Toyota is doing, right from marketing to consumer behavior and everything. But then we need to have a long-term vision rather than having a short-term vision. as Galati sir mentioned that by 2030, if we still, keep selling petrol and diesel cars, they will be on road for another 15, 20 years. And considering that heavy commercial vehicles, they run for 25, 30 years, they are going to create, problem to the air pollution thing. So yes, we need to strategically think how we are going to improve the transportation scenario in longer run. What could be the probable solutions? Yes, technology is there, but how do we implement there? The infrastructure requirement, the financial requirement. So the governments will have to think about it. Thank you, Gulati sir, for that really, really, passionate speech and a lot of numbers on the transportation sector. Last but not the least, I would want to mention that this year, India Clean Air Summit is collaborating with University of California, Davis. They have been organizing this Air Sensors International Conference, ASIC, since last couple of years. And this year, it is the first time that ASIC has come to India, and ICAS is collaborating with them to host the first ASIC conference India chapter. So 24th and 25th, we will be focusing on air pollution and climate change, and on 26th, we will be completely focusing on air sensors. How do we collect the data? How do we calibrate the instruments? And how do we use the data towards policy making? So I invite Sandra Hall, who is here from UC Davis. She is the Program Outreach and Fund Development Manager, and who's going to talk about the vision and objective of ASIC. Over to you, Sandra.
Thank you so much, and thank you for inviting us to be part of the India Clean Air Summit. I feel very honored to be up here among such passionate, driven, intelligent people that care about the future of this one planet Earth that we are on. I'm very lucky to also be working at the University of California Air Quality Research Center with other passionate, driven people that are working to understand the health effects of air pollution on the human body. And I myself, while I'm not a researcher or a scientist, I get to learn from them and share what I learn with others in the community. I get to hear the various studies that they conduct about the effects of pollution on lung health, on brain health, about the biomass burning that can affect us all, and share it through the conferences that we organize as a research center. So that is why we are bringing the Air Sensors International Conference to India, to be able to share some of the research that has been shared among others with folks here, and then hear from you, many of you that are speakers, and learn about the projects and the research that you have been doing in this country. I'm very excited to hear from you and bring the information back to our research center. Our center conducts or monitors the air quality on 2 different national networks throughout the United States that have over 300 air quality monitoring sites. That research is then analyzed and reviewed to be able to understand what the sources are of the pollution and how we can use that data to change policy for improving the air quality. And so that is our main purpose at the Air Quality Research Center, and I look forward to hearing from many of you about your vision and your purpose with the research that you do. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandra, to agreeing to be part of this panel and speaking about ASIC. I'm really delighted, that we had such a great panel today who talked about awareness, who talked about governance, who talked about technology, scientific evidence, awareness, and everything that we need to put in our messaging towards, better air quality for our cities. I would want to request everyone here that when you see someone, burning garbage, or when you see a vehicle spewing smoke, please don't be silent. Raise your voice, We have public redressal systems created by our municipal bodies. Please put your complaints on them so that the departments can understand what is happening in the city and it can be taken up for interventions. And I would really want to, send out a strong message that we have this strong inherent behavior of complaining that the government is not doing anything. When we are working so closely with the government, we see there are a lot of challenges that they also face. They do not have the understanding or the capacity to understand these technical subjects. So let's come together to help them also understand the technicalities of these environmental challenges so that they can become efficient towards implementing the solutions on ground. And it would be really, effective if we can create a sound ecosystem where all the stakeholders can come together. We can have an active dialogue on the challenges that we face. And with that, I really intend that we create such dialogues, ecosystem, and we create a revolution. Yes, National Clean Air Program has initiated, towards this revolution, but we need to take it forward. It cannot, yes, the target is going to end in 2024, but what beyond that? We will be having all these discussions coming on 24, 25, and 26. And with that hope, I think that you all will be attending the coming sessions and be part of the discussions and pose questions to our speakers so that they also brainstorm and come up with ideas that we all can work on in future. Thank you, everyone, and thank you, our dignitaries. Yes, we have dinner for you all, so please let's have some interaction during the dinner time. So. Jay, can you just be there for 1 minute? Can you do it? Jay, could you hand over?
Thank you.